Hey y'all, it's Mr. Boyden. I'm not in class today, so I wanted to make a quick video and go over the quiz, the quadratics quiz that we would have gone over. And so I'm just going to walk through that now with you, and hopefully this will help you to understand how you were scored and make sure you've checked. I hope you make sure you've checked your score before you watch this video. So here we go. Question 1 asked us to determine the zeros, the y-intercept, and the vertex. I think the y-intercept is probably the easiest to find. So remember that with the y-intercept, that occurs where x equals 0, and so all you would need to do here is plug in a 0 for x. And so what would that look like? Negative 0 squared plus 2 times 0 plus 5, and that equals 5. If you want to get kind of fancy with it, you could write the entire coordinates, so 0, comma 5, and that would be good as well. From here, we're going to go on and find the zeros. Remember, there are 3 ways to find the zeros. The first one was with just good old-fashioned algebra steps. We're not going to do that because that was only easy when b was 0, but in this case b is 2. Another method we could try is factoring, although it's not going to work on this one. And so what we want to do is the quadratic formula then. So let's make a note: a equals -1, b equals 2, and c equals 5. Okay, let's fill in the quadratic formula then. So for the x-intercepts, negative b over 2a plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. All right, and then over 2a. And guys, from here it's just simplifying. Okay, is all we really need to do from this point. The left side's pretty straightforward. You have a negative on the top and a negative on the bottom. Those are going to cancel out. And then 2 divided by 2 is 1. So we get a 1 over here on the left. Plus or minus. Okay, then over on the right, this number in here in the radical, if we simplify that, we're going to get 24. So we get square root of 24 over negative 2. And let's keep going. We need to break down that 24. I'm going to remind you how to make a factor tree over here real quick. We do need to simplify the radical. So let's break 24 down into, how about 4 and 6? So 2 and 2, 2 and 3. So we have a pair of 2's here, and the 2 and the 3 are kind of just leftovers, so we're going to go back and keep the 6. That tells us that we can rewrite this as 1 plus or minus 2 root 6 over negative 2. And that's useful because now we can cancel out those 2's. So 2's are going to go away for us. And also the negative's going to go away because it's a plus minus. And when you have a plus minus, you're going to be doing both addition and subtraction. You're going to get back both the positive and negative version anyway. And so our x-intercepts are, we can write them like, we can just write 1 plus or minus root 6. That's totally fine. I also would accept if you did like a decimal approximation for both of them. That's totally fine as well for this. Okay, so those are the x-intercepts. And then for the last part, we were asked for the vertex. And guys, I want to remind you that the vertex always comes from this first part of the quadratic formula. So when I go to write down the vertex, we already know that the coordinates are 1, comma, something. We just need to figure out what that something is. And to do that, we're going to plug that back into our original equation. And so let's do that now. So y equals negative 1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 5. Now, good news, bad news, y'all. A lot of you were successful in setting that up. There were some arithmetic mistakes in here. So not over on the right side. Everybody got 2 plus 5 right. But right here, we had some issues. So guys, this actually turns into -1. And here's why. That negative right there is not getting squared. You go, wait, but Mr. Boyden, it says negative x squared. Hold up. Let's go back up here. Guys, if the negative was getting squared up here at the very top, then they wouldn't have written it there. They're not going to give you an unsimplified quadratic. So that negative is there, and so we could think of it like we know a negative flips a quadratic so it faces downward. Yeah, it doesn't simplify out. It doesn't cancel out. Okay, and it's not getting squared. And so that's why we end up with -1. So there were a lot of you who got 8 as the y value, but if we add these together, we actually get 6. Okay, and so that's not a huge deal, but something you want to be really careful of, and something you want to be aware of. Okay, that's number 1. Let's go take a look at number 2. Okay, here's number 2. They gave us an equation, and they asked us for the coordinates of the vertex. 2 ways to do this. You could take notice of the fact that this is written in vertex form, or you could think about it the way we did on our project, thinking of this equation as being shifted in different directions. And so we know like this 10 right here shifts left 10, and that 15 shifts it up 15. So -10, 15 is the coordinates of the vertex. That was worth 2 points, by the way. Okay, what about the next one? They tell us about the Y-intercept. Now we have to remember, in order to get this right, that a Y-intercept is not just one value. And so guys, I saw that a lot of you recognized that that was a Y value, and you used that correctly. So you did a setup like this. You had -20 equals A times something plus 10. I'm leaving that blank just for now, okay? But I'll come back to it. Plus 15. That was a common type of setup I saw. But the number that you put in here is going to determine if you're going to be successful in this or not. And guys, there were a lot of you that put 10 in there. Some of you put -10 in there. Some of you didn't put anything at all. But remember, a y-intercept, like visually, is always on the y-axis. And what do we know about coordinates on the y-axis? Well, the x value is always 0. So it's 0, -20 is what they're trying to tell you here. And that's why you need to plug in a 0 right there for x. Now, and here's the good news. Almost all of you did proper solving from here on out. So that was great. It's just that if you had an invalid setup, you're not going to get a correct answer, obviously. Okay, so let's double check the steps and make sure that we're good. I'm going to subtract 15 on both sides right now and do a simplification. So I get -35 equals 100a. We can divide out the 100. And I guess technically you could leave it like that. I'd really like you to simplify it to -7/20. And that would be awesome. You could also, because the decimal on this one is also an exact answer, you could write -0.35 as well. Okay, either of those would be a correct answer to part B. Okay, let's consider part C. Okay, part C, the issue that a lot of you had on this one is you did not realize that you were allowed to use your result from part B to answer C. Here's what I mean. They told you about an x value and a y value right here. And we already figured out what A was. So when you go to set this up, instead of writing the y value, f of x, write B. And then a lot of you wrote A is the next thing that you wrote. But guys, we know, and I'll use the decimal so it's easier to type in a calculator, but we know that it's -0.35. Okay, and then what? Some of you also kind of messed this up as well. You didn't realize that we knew the x value. The x value is 8. I saw a handful of you put 10 in here, but we already know that it's 8. So we'll get 8 plus 10. Oh, and my dog really wants you to do well on this too, evidently. So yeah, Haley, yeah, she's very supportive and encouraging of your success. Okay, so plus 15. Life is good with dogs. All right, and guys, from here, we're just going to type that in the calculator. I don't see any reason why we would ever want to do that by hand or in our heads. It looks way too nasty. So type that in, and you get -98.4, and that's the value of B. Okay, it was 2 points per question on this one. Okay, and that's what we were looking for. So again, guys, I'm really sorry that I'm not there in class with you today, but this is one of the things that we would have gone over today. We also now have a quiz, the Graphing Rational Functions quiz, and it's only one question, and we'll be going over that next time in class. So if you're watching this now, I will see you Friday, and I hope you have a great day.